It was only at the age of 30 that he began his transformative public ministry. He chose 12 diverse disciples, from fishermen to tax collectors, to accompany him on a mission that would alter the course of history. The miracles he performed were astounding. He healed the sick, gave sight to the blind, turned water into wine, and even raised the dead, proving his deity, his power. His teachings, rooted in love, forgiveness, and faith, drew massive crowds. He spoke in parables, using simple stories to convey profound truths, making the divine relatable. But his rising influence was perceived as a threat by religious leaders, and the Roman establishment conspired against him, manipulating one of his closest disciples, Judas, to betray him for a mere 30 silver coins. The events that followed were swift. Jesus faced false accusations, was handed over to Pontius Pilate, and against Pilate's own judgment was sentenced to death by crucifixion on the cross after enduring hours of pain and ridicule. Jesus uttered the poignant words, "Father, forgive them," showcasing his boundless love and mercy. His body was taken and laid in a tomb, sealed by a large stone. 3 days later, the tomb stood empty. Jesus, resurrected, appeared to his disciples and many others over 40 days, reinstating his teachings and emphasizing the importance of faith. He then ascended to heaven, but not without leaving behind the promise of the Holy Spirit, a divine guide for all believers that would later become the bedrock of Christianity. Long ago, when the world was not as kind and good as today, there lived a man named Noah. Unlike others around him, Noah was kind-hearted and lived a life of goodness in a world filled with mischief and wrongdoing. The earth was filled with people who were selfish and cruel, causing harm and sorrow. But Noah was different. He cared for others and lived righteously. Standing out in a world of trouble one day, Noah received a special message from God. Saddened by the earth's state, God decided to send a great flood to cleanse it. However, God saw Noah's goodness and wanted to save him, his family, and the creatures of the earth. God instructed Noah to build a huge boat, an ark, big enough for his family, and a safe haven for animals. Despite disbelief and ridicule from others, Noah worked tirelessly, building the enormous ark. In an extraordinary event, pairs of every kind of animal began to arrive. Lions, elephants, birds, and even tiny insects. They came to the ark as if guided by a mysterious force, ready to be sheltered from the impending flood. Then the rain started. It grew from a drizzle to a torrential downpour, covering the earth in water safely inside the ark. Noah, his family, and the myriad of animals floated at top. The rising waters, the ark was a crowded, bustling refuge filled with the sounds of animals. Noah and his family took on the immense task of caring for them, ensuring each creature was fed and safe during their time on the ark. After weeks, Noah sent a dove to seek dry land. On its first journey, it returned empty, beaked, but on the second trip, it brought back an olive branch, signaling that land was near and the waters were receding. Eventually, the ark came to rest on a mountaintop as the water slowly subsided. Noah opened the ark, releasing the animals and his family back into the world, fresh and renewed for a new beginning, to promise never to flood the earth again. God created a rainbow in the sky. It was a vibrant symbol of hope, marking a new chapter for Noah, his family, and all Earth's creatures. A long, long time ago, in Egypt, there was a baby named Moses. He was born at a time when things were hard for his people, the Israelites. The Pharaoh, who was king in Egypt, was afraid of their increasing numbers, so he made an evil rule. All baby boys from the Israelites had to be taken away. But Moses' mom didn't want that to happen to her baby, so she came up with a brave plan. She put Moses in a basket and gently placed it among the reeds along the Nile River. The Pharaoh's daughter found the basket while she was bathing in the river. She felt sorry for the crying baby and decided to take care of him. So Moses grew up in the Pharaoh's palace like a prince of Egypt, even though he was really an Israelite. When Moses got older, he saw how badly the Pharaoh was treating the Israelites. They were forced to work hard and were often beaten. This made Moses upset, and one day, he killed an Egyptian guard that was beating an Israelite slave. After this, he had to leave Egypt, so he ran away to a far-off land and lived there for many years. Then something amazing happened. God spoke to Moses from a burning bush that did not burn up. God told Moses to go back to Egypt and ask the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go free. Going back to Egypt wasn't easy. The Pharaoh didn't want to listen to Moses, so God sent 10 plagues to convince the Pharaoh. There were frogs everywhere, bugs, and even darkness. During the day, finally after the last and saddest plague, the Pharaoh agreed to let the Israelite people free. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, but their journey wasn't over when they got to the Red Sea. The Pharaoh changed his mind and came after them with his army. But Moses trusted God. He stretched out his hand, and something incredible happened. The sea split in two, and the Israelites walked through on dry land. After they were safe, the sea went back to normal, and the Pharaoh's army couldn't follow them anymore. Moses and the Israelites were finally free. They traveled for a long time to reach a special mountain called Si. There God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, which were important rules on how to live and be good to each other. Moses' life was full of adventures and miracles. He started as a baby in a basket and grew up to be a great leader who helped his people find freedom and showed them the way to live kindly and justly. In the very beginning, when the world was brand new, there was a beautiful garden called Eden. It was filled with the most colorful flowers, the juiciest fruits, and the chapai birds in this garden. God created the first 2 people. Adam and Eve. Life in the garden was like a never-ending day of play and joy. Adam and Eve explored this wondrous place, talking with the animals, resting under the shade of magnificent trees, and enjoying the sweetest fruits among the countless trees in the garden. One stood out, the tree of knowledge of good. In a time long ago, in the ancient lands of Jerusalem, lived a man named Jesus, who was known for his teachings of love, kindness, and the word of God. People from far and wide came to hear him speak and witness the miracles he performed. However, not everyone saw Jesus as a force of good. Some of the city's leaders and teachers felt threatened by his growing influence and the truths he spoke. They plotted to arrest him, fearing the change he brought. One of Jesus' disciples, Judas, led by confusion and fear, agreed to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver on a quiet night while Jesus was praying. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas arrived with soldiers. He greeted Jesus with a hug, signaling to the soldiers who they were to arrest. Jesus was taken to the high priest, where he faced accusations and false witnesses. Despite his innocence, the leaders decided Jesus was a threat that must be eliminated. They took him to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, hoping he would order Jesus' death. Pilate questioned Jesus, but found no reason to punish him. Yet the crowd, stirred up by the leaders, shouted for Jesus to be crucified. Pilate, feeling the pressure of the crowd and not wanting a riot, reluctantly agreed. The soldiers took Jesus and mocked him, placing a crown of thorns on his head and a purple robe around his shoulders, calling him King of the Jews. In just a second, they led him through the streets, burdened with a heavy wooden cross upon his back, to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There, they nailed Jesus' hands and feet to the cross and raised it high. As he hung there, in unimaginable pain, Jesus prayed for forgiveness for those who had wronged him, showing compassion. Even in his suffering for hours, Jesus hung on the cross under the scorching sun, surrounded by a few loyal followers and his mother, who watched with broken hearts. Finally, Jesus called out, "It is finished," and he took his last breath. The sky darkened, and the earth shook, as if mourning the loss of the Son of God. Jesus' body was taken down from the cross. Crossed by his followers, they wrapped him in linen and laid him in a tomb which was sealed with a large stone guards were placed outside to ensure no one could steal his body. 3 days later, something miraculous happened. Women who followed Jesus went to visit his tomb, only to find the stone rolled away and the tomb empty. An angel appeared to them, saying, "Do not be afraid, for I know you seek Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen." Jesus, after his resurrection, appeared to his disciples and many others, proving that he had conquered death and offering hope of eternal life. He instructed his followers to spread his teachings to all corners of the world. Finally, Jesus ascended to heaven, promising that he would always be with them in spirit. His sacrifice and resurrection became the cornerstone of love's triumph over death.